This you?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. What I'm going to show you today is just some tips and tools for how to make online teaching interactive and effective. So I'm just going to be running through some things. I think if I just show a lot of visuals, that will help you get some ideas and help you think of how to translate your activities to this online format. So to begin with, I would suggest keep it simple. Focus on having a relationship with the student because that is going to allow you to make progress and gain their trust and capture their attention. If they don't want to talk with you or if they don't feel comfortable with you, you're not going to be making progress. So that's a little trickier for most of you because you're launching your lessons online as opposed to starting in person and then going online. That's noisy, okay? I also suggest that you use tools that you're comfortable with. You don't need to learn how to do structured literacy, how to do online teaching, and how to use fancy tools all at the same time. So I'm using PowerPoint because PowerPoint is easy for me. I don't have to think about it. That's that. So that's what I'm doing. But if you're somebody who uses Smart Notebook in your classroom or Google Slides or whatever, I suggest just sticking with that because then that will be at least some part of your lesson that feels automatic and easy. Also, you want to make sure that technology works on both ends. So I've noticed that Chromebooks and iPads are a little trickier to use on Zoom than a laptop or a desktop. If kids have a mouse, that makes things way easier because they're able to click on the screen. If they're little, they might not be able to handle sharing the keyboard and mouse with you anyway. So maybe an iPad's fine. But yeah, you want to make sure the technology piece works. That's a huge part of it. Even when we're keeping this simple, bare bones lessons, we have to make sure the technology works. So when I'm planning in person versus online, I learned pretty quickly, a couple days into this, that everything I did in person with my kids, that doesn't all translate perfectly to the online setting. So some things that I thought would work really well, I just have abandoned temporarily because they don't translate as well online. And so I've just created new ways to meet those educational objectives. So if you think about what it is that you want your student to work on, don't think of necessarily how you would do it at a table with them, think of how you would do it online. You also might need to enlist their parents more so than you would if they were going to be coming and, dropped off in your classroom or the library to work with you. It helps to have the parents set up a certain space ahead of time. That's been a huge deal. Putting the kids at the kitchen island and doing their lessons there while everybody's walking around them doesn't work well. First of all, you're going to hear all that ridiculous background noise. Second of all, the child has all these other things to look at and think about and be engaged in, and that's competing for your time. So often sitting in a private room works, or a private room with the parent nearby doing their work, just so they can be with the child in case behaviors get fussy or in case they need to help with technology. Like if something pops up on the screen, I can't do anything about that. So I have to tell the child, get your grown up to help. It also helps if the family has a printer and can print out things for the child to write on or manipulate during the lesson. That helps with making things interactive. Not all kids can do mouse and keyboard control just because either their technology doesn't let them or they're too little and they just can't figure it out. So having those printables helps. The parents might also need to think about incentives like, okay, after your lesson, we're going to go on a walk, or after your lesson, you get to have TV time or whatever, something so that they know after doing the hard work online, they have something to look forward to, or they have some time just to veg. So if everything's going fine, don't worry about it. But if you're noticing issues with how your lessons are going, you might want to chat with the parent about these issues. And also scheduling, like, is this at a really bad time of day for the family? Are the other siblings in the family having fun time while this sibling is sitting down to do hard work? That can make things difficult as well. But if all the siblings are kind of engaged in something, or if everybody knows they have one time in the day where they have to do their work with their teacher, then that kind of makes things seem more even for some of the kids. Some kids, doesn't matter. I also suggest making some templates. Don't feel like you have to reinvent the wheel every lesson. Figure out what works and just repeat that with either different word lists or different, just different sounds or whatever it is. The repetition and familiarity, that actually helps kids because the lesson is predictable. They think, oh, yay, it's time for my favorite game that I like, or, oh, yay, this is the part of the lesson that's silly. And they also just have an opportunity to review things. So the structure is already built into that 10-step lesson plan, sort of some review, but don't worry if you're not playing a new game every single week. I think it's very hard to come up with all these new gadgets and graphics every week to impress them. Now, I do adjust when things get stale. So sometimes I'll play a game for like 3 lessons in a row and I'll get my money's worth out of that one template. And then if this just doesn't seem that interesting anymore, then the next time I have a new game. But then I'll use that for a few lessons, and I'm spending less time creating things because I'm just inputting new words or sounds. And if the game just doesn't work well for whatever reason, then abandon it, of course. Don't keep that template going. The things that work with a template are review words. So instead of having them read a word list, that just makes online learning, I think, even more boring. I try to have their review words in some sort of a game situation. If I'm working on sight words with a child, that also translates well to a game. Fluency activities can translate well, and sorts. Those things can just be a template that you're changing the words, the pictures, the sounds every week. I also recommend personalizing the graphics and pictures and words to your child. So you'll get a lot of bang for your buck by putting things on the screen that are fun for them. So we just had Easter, so I did that week, everybody got Easter eggs and for their game pieces and things like that. And I just copy and pasted between all my students. So it's not like I was reinventing things, it was just Easter eggs and everybody loved that. Some of the sports fanatics are getting logos and, you know, those kinds of things on their presentations. Cute animals, Pokemons. When I'm writing sentences, I try to use their siblings' names, or if I know their friends, I'll include that. Things like that are really small go a long way. And every week when I'm doing fluency sentences, I just use those same names that make them happy, and that's just a really easy way to help them engage and feel happy with this online lesson. Now, some of the tasks that I do are just not on a slide. It doesn't mean that I'm not doing these things. It just means that we're doing them face-to-face, or we're doing them using my DocCam. So most of my phonemic awareness work is face-to-face. So I stop my share, and they just see my big giant face on the screen, and we do our phonemic awareness work that way, because I want them to see my mouth when I overemphasize things. Sometimes I pull up the screen to do some manipulation to help them see how a phonemic awareness task is working, but then I'll go back to my full face. Reading from text, I have a lot of decodable text in print, so I've been using all that on my DocCam, and I just scan sometimes the copies to my children if it helps them to have a print copy at home. Otherwise, they just read off my screen, but I'm not typing it onto the screen. I'm, I'm putting it under my DocCam. You don't necessarily have a DocCam, so one thing I'm realizing is you might be using this, screenshots. So if you have things that are PDFs, you might put those on a slide. I'm telling you, I don't put my readings on a slide, but sometimes on occasion I do, and I just take a screenshot of it from a PDF, and then I insert it on the slide. I also haven't been doing Wilson magnets on slides. There's, what is it called? There's some gadget online where you can basically do those magnet tiles, and I just never signed up for that account because I didn't feel like putting that on my plate, frankly. I have my Wilson magnets. I manipulate those kind of on using the dot cam in front of the for the child, or I use the what's it called, the whiteboard feature of Zoom, and I build letter tiles and we manipulate them that way. So unfortunately, that's one thing that if I was going to be doing this long term and be an online tutor, I would invest in figuring out that software so that the kids could manipulate the tiles. Yet since I'm a local teacher and tutor, and I plan on going back to seeing these students whenever I can, a month or 2 months or who knows, I'm just kind of tabling the magnet thing for now. And I think that's okay. Okay, so if you're feeling ambitious, you might look into these. These are the 3 websites that are coming up a lot on the Orton Gillingham, what's it called? The Orton Gillingham forums that I'm a part of. So I'll let you explore those. Some of them have deals for accounts, or I don't know if they're free or paid or whatever, but people have been sharing lessons on there too. So you can take things that other people created, like a sort for R blends or a soft C game, and you could include those in your lessons. I'm just don't have enough brain space right now to learn that new software. So I'm not putting that on my plate. And I want you to feel like you don't have to either. Just do what you're comfortable with, but try to make it engaging. Okay, so now I'm going to show you some actual presentations that I have for my students. So I'm going onto my share screen. Oops, looks like I don't have it open right now. Hold on. Oh, okay. I have a lot open. 1 second.
See it.
Okay. Here is, I have a little fun with me. Here's one of my presentations. So the way I've been doing it is I've been making a separate PowerPoint for each child on my caseload, and I just update that before every lesson. But then it's their template, it's their words, it's right where they left off. So I always start with their name right at the beginning as a little welcome. We have an incentive jar or checklist. So after every task, she picks a butterfly. Some of my students, I can give them mouse control and they drag their own butterfly in. Other kids, they just use their words to describe it, which is a good oral language task for them to use their words to describe which butterfly exactly they want me to put in their jar. I put this slide on here to remind me that it's time for phonemic awareness. So when it gets to phonemic awareness, I hit stop share and I go back to the big screen so they can see my face. And I also, another thing I don't do on my PowerPoint are my flashcards because I use my document camera for that. But other people, I think I sent you a file where you can use some Google Slides or something to do the flashcard drill online if you don't have a doc cam. This is our sight word review. So it's just her list of sight words. And, as we add a sight word to that list, all I have to do is hit enter. And then, well, I should have to change my colors, but we would be adding to our list and making that longer. This is a little activity I did. I just put a paper on there. She has to use her language to describe one of her, this is like for a new sight word. She would say, over by the waterfall, A-N-D, and then I would know the one she's talking about, and I would change it to whatever color we picked for that day. So basically, I'm just having her hunt and find that word, spell it, and read the word over and over. So here we do the same thing for was, under the clownfish, W-A-S, was, and she just does this over and over. One way that we're practicing our sight words is these are little rainbow phrases. You can see I put the word and in all of these sentences, and these sentences either have names from her family or they have sound out words that I know she can do. And so these are some phrases with our sight words. So this is a template that I just keep there. And if I just did it for and, but let's say we were doing the word has next week, I would change all these sentences to have has, you know, Charlie has a, or whatever. Then we play bingo with our sight words. So these ones have a lot of was in them, as you can see. So sometimes right before we read to preview, we find all of our new sight words and we put them in yellow. So I'm doing this because this particular person doesn't do great with mouse control, or she's on an iPad, so it just doesn't work. But we say WAS was, WAS was. Oh, did we find them all? Great. And then we play tic-tac-toe. So again, she doesn't have mouse control, but she can read the sentence and then I can cover it for her. And tic-tac-toe is just every lesson we play this with our sight word sentences, but then I just adjust the sentences every week to include the sight words I want to focus on, and I adjust the sound out words to reflect what we've been studying as well. Now she's a kindergartner, so we have kind of like a lot of sight words and CBC words. We're doing both. This is a game pop. So I was showing her the point is we take off the star and we find the word pop and then the game is over. So in these bubbles, she had to call out the color of the star or the whatever you would call that thing. Let's say she said green. I would pull green off and she would read the word. Hot. Not there. Pop. Pop. There it is. We found our mystery word. Should we keep playing? And we keep on going. So this is a way to do a review word list without her just reading a boring word list because she's little. And it looks like I had 2 versions of that. So far what you saw me do was phonemic awareness. I did flashcards, but they're not on the slide. I did sight word review. I did sound out word review. Now we're at, this would be step 3 on your template, the new lesson. I'm finding that these discovery steps that I normally do are not translating as well because the children they have the sheet in front of them. Normally when they're with me, I hold the piece of paper on my side of the table. I have them say, you know, I do this whole routine, this Orton Gillingham thing, and I have them listen and try to isolate the sound and tell me what the target sound is. But because they have the paper right there in front of them that their parents have printed, I'm skipping that and we're just going right to the analysis of looking at it. So because she's a kindergartner, we're doing word families. We're not doing one short vowel a lesson. That pace would be way too fast. We're staying with certain short vowels for a while. So this particular day we did OG. She had this on her page. What we've been doing together is coloring the vowel. So I've been using the annotate feature of what's it called? The annotate feature of Zoom, and we've been saying og, og, og while we colored this, og, 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 and saying it over and over and so on and so on. I'll clear that. Then we have our word list. Now for some of my students, it's been, if they have it in front of them, that's great. Some kids, their parents don't print it out. So what I've been doing is I've been covering the screen just like this. I just put a shape on the screen and then the child can read off the screen, but it's a little bit more controlled. So it's not so busy for them. But if they have it in front of them, I prefer for them to, you know, tap it out in front of them. And there's another feature on Annotate that gives you like this little glowing pointer, which I found really helpful if I need to draw their attention to something. I turn that on, it's called Spotlight, and I can say, oh, check the first letter of this word. What letter do you see? H, that's right. Let's tap it out again. Og, hog, and so on. And then for this box, all I have to do is just shrink it down like that, and we go to the next line. I've been doing a lot of picture sorts because they're very easy to make on PowerPoint. All you have to do is, you know, insert online image and it pops. Oops, there we go. It pops right up. And so I just search for the clip art that I want and I get it. So for this, she was sorting og versus ag. And this would be like step 6 on your lesson plan sheet. This would be a multisensory activity that's reviewing what we just learned, the OG word family, and it's also getting her ready for spelling. Because if she hears OG, she's thinking about which vowel am I going to spell? Am I going to spell with short O or short A? So she says the word jog, and then she tells me where to put it, and I move it for her. Other students are able to move it on their own. Now, this is more review with reading because we're going so slowly with adding new concepts, and she's just been sort of stuck in this sound out stage for a while. I mean, she's in kindergarten, so appropriate. I've just been trying to put in as many sentences and as many reading opportunities as possible. She's not really able to handle a book, a decodable book. So rather than reading books, I'm doing really controlled sentences, and these games are less threatening for her than a book. So this is something she's into. And when she saw this page, her face just lit up. So the challenge is there's always like a challenge or a point to my games, because then it just seems like there's a purpose besides just reading. The point of this one is to find the mystery word dog. One of these princesses is covering up the word dog. So she would call the princess's name Cinderella. Then she would, try her best to read the sentence. And if she got stuck on something, I could always highlight a sight word for her, or I could put the vowel in red to remind her of, the different kinds of coding that we know. She keeps calling a princess's name until, we found our mystery word, yay! And then usually the kids want to keep on playing the game, so we keep on going for a few more rounds. For spelling, I've been finding it helpful to spell with them on the board. So I give them every lesson a printable spelling sheet. So at home, they have a template that they're writing on with pencil, except for some of my older students who are typing on the screen, but all my other kids are writing with pencil. Now, it doesn't really work to have them hold up their paper and show me, because, they'll always, do it like this or hold it back and I can't see. So I'm just sort of giving them the benefit of the doubt, and because I'm not doing this long term, I'm not working too hard to figure out how I can help them with letter formation at home. That's fine. So I'm having them echo after me, write it on their paper, and then tell me their answer. And when they tell me their answer, then I record it on the screen. And I'll just say, does your A look like my A? And that's how we tackle letter formation. What says D? They would echo me D. They would write it, and then they would tell me D. Oops. And after they tell me, then I would add it to the screen so they could see. Same with words. If the word was log, they would echo me log, log, log. They would write it, and then I'd say, okay, what do you have? And they would tell me L-O-G. And then if I needed to error handle, I could, but otherwise, there it is. Sentences take a little bit more patience, because the student, you can't quite see when they're done. You can't see if they're getting distracted as much, but I still do it the same way. My mom sat on the log. Echo me. My mom sat on the log. Write it. I let them write for a little bit, and then they tell me out loud what they did. And I just ask them, did you use a capital? Did you put any punctuation at the end? And I just have to trust them to be honest with me. For reading, you can see that sometimes I'll do a screenshot. If it is a book that I have a PDF of, I can do a screenshot, which is kind of nice, because then we can use our annotate feature to do things like, oh, this is a sight word. We haven't learned that one yet, so I'm going to give that to you. Oh, do you know this sight word, H-E? Yes, you do. What other sight words do you see? A. Oh, good. Oops, what happened there? Good job. So I might have them hunt for their sight words first, and then, do we see any short O words? Yes, we do. Right there. Right there. Oh, come on. Whoops, I'm losing my feature here. I'm not pressing on it the right way. And I even see one short A word. Okay, so when you get to those words with the red vowels, you know you're going to sound those out. For some of my older students, I might even be working on phrasing, not for this particular child, but after they read the sentence, I could draw like this and give them some tips on phrasing. He sees dots on a pad. There you go. Now for this sentence, we can try to do that in one breath. Dawn sees dots. So not all my students need to have sight words or short vowels marked or phrases, but these are different options, and these are all with the annotate tool. Now, like I said, most of my kids, I'm doing their books under a DotCam, so I'm able to point and cue them that way. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing that particular student. That was one child, and now I'm just going to go through a bunch of different kits. So if you are curious about seeing more specific examples, hang on and stay here and keep watching me. I'm not going to go through them as slowly. I'm just going to rapidly show you what different children's slides look like. That way you can kind of imagine, oh, what it might look like for people at different levels or different with different interests. This is a first grader, first grade boy. Let me get that out of the way. And another thing is when I'm using PowerPoint, I don't have it in slideshow mode because then I can't manipulate the slides. So I just try to hide the toolbar. So this was a checklist for him. After every activity, we went back to the slide and moved the football. Fluency chart to help us talk about what we're working on. This was a game where, just like the little girl, she had the princesses, he had to find that XFL logo. So I'll bring that to the front. So he had a whole board covered in XFL logos, and all of his review words had that soft C with vowel, consonant, E. So he would tell me the logo and I would remove it, and we just kept reading and reading. This boy also plays tic-tac-toe, but instead of flowers, we are doing NFL and footballs. And these are all, you can see all these sentences have vowel, consonant, E's because that's what he's doing for his review. Again, you didn't see his phonemic awareness or his flashcards because that was done using face-to-face and then the DotCam. Here's our new lesson. He had this in front of him, but I had it on the screen as well. And then here's just the big bookmark we used for him to read the words. He also had a sort, U consonant E words that make the U sound and U consonant E words that make the oo sound. This is what his spelling page looked like. I haven't cleared it yet, so this is sort of like the finished product. And then you can see we did some error handling on this word. He had some issues there, so I was able to model on the screen the blend and then the vowel, consonant, E to help correct that. Here's his sentence. Afterwards, we looked for the two words that use the new U consonant E pattern, and I was able to mark them. We didn't do this, but I did have a writing assignment plan too, just in case. A lot of times at the bottom of the kids' presentations, I have like old slides because I might use these games again. So for example, this is a roll and read game. He rolled the dice at home, and every time he rolled the dice, I pulled off a smiley face, and we just kept going and going until he found the word moose. So this is the board almost completely uncovered, and you can see I was working on icons or words that have an E and words that don't. So he had to really be careful to look at that pattern to see if he saw that silent E, because then he would know how to pronounce the vowel. So hiding something in the game gives it a purpose, like I said before. I use sorts all the time, and I'm trying to save all my sorts so that when I teach it to another child, I don't have to reinvent and find all that clip art again. This game did not go so well online. This is one of our favorites to play in person, but it was just a real hassle to play online because the child would read the word and I'd have to kind of quickly scan to see which word on this giant page they were reading and cover it up. So I love 4 in a row in person. So when you go back to that kind of work, this is a really fun way to do review words. Really fun. This is from themeasuredmom.com. I love this. Sorts. Oh, this is writing. We're going to talk about the writing revolution later this semester and because, but, so sentences. So this is just a template so that the next time I do this, I can just copy and paste the slide and delete the old words, but keep the because, but, so. I used to do a checklist like this, so I just have that tossed away. And this was a game that went very poorly, did not work. I had him look through all these pictures and he had to make matches, but it was just too hard, so I ended up typing the words. All right, let's see who's next. So this is a first grade student. I'm gonna just keep on going, find different PowerPoints to show you. Let's take a look at a second grader. I guess their grade doesn't really matter because they're all at different ability levels. So she has a checklist with things that she finds cute. Again, this is a cue for me to do my sounds and flashcards. We have, I bought a Redword, Orton Gillingham Redword kind of packets, and I've been using those. So I just do a screenshot of it and then I paste it onto the page and she can trace it at home because I give her the printable. And then for me, I've been tracing the letters right on the screen while she does it at home. Oops, that's kind of messy. And then one thing that we do, let me go to a different word for this actually. So for the word any, when I'm teaching this word, we look at the part of the word that plays fair and which part doesn't. Any. Okay, well the N plays fair, so we'll check that. And technically the Y does, because Y at the end of the word can make the E sound, but the A does not. Any sounds like it would start with a short E. So doing this kind of analysis using the annotate feature helps draw attention to why a trick word is a trick word. So these are some of her review words, and then her newest trick words are down. Oops, the thing about annotate is you have to hit clear. There we go, otherwise it stays. Okay, so this is another example of a roll and read. You can see what it looks like when it's all covered up. And she has her more advanced words. She's been doing vowel teams and multisyllabic words. You can see that. Here's another game that's already been pulled apart. There it is. She had to go until she found that cute little kitty. And you can see I put all the EEs and EAs in red, and we were looking for homophones. So she was reading these sentences, and anytime we found a homophone, we recorded it on this sheet. She had this paper at home, and I was doing it on the board at the same time because we're starting to make sense of which words use EE, which words use EA. So when this board is all covered, you know, at the beginning of the game, all of these are covered, and she just randomly calls a number because she's trying to hunt for whatever the little hidden object is. It's more fun than just me telling her, read these words, let's put them on the list. So this is a word list from a couple weeks ago. We were working on sorting our ER, UR, and IR words. And so I was reviewing that so that we could also talk about how to sort our spellings for the long E sound. I kept last week's pages on there because we were referring to those. And then this week we added EE in this particular lesson, and she had all this in front of her. So she was marking it down at home on her paper copy, and I was reading off the screen. Spelling template looks similar for most kids. Okay, so this is again sentence work. I'm moving away from doing sentence dictations with her with spelling words and having her try to integrate her spelling more into grade level work. So we're doing comprehension questions that go with the book that we're reading, and that's taking the place of her sentence dictations. And we're going to work our way up to a sentence summary. Again, this is the writing revolution, which we will do together later this semester. And this slide is a template that I copy and paste onto whoever's presentation, whoever's working on this. And just some old activities at the bottom so I don't lose those. Okay. Let's find a couple more people to sift through. And now you're at the point in the presentation where if you're feeling satisfied, you can just close this out. But if you still want more, I'm going to show you some more. Let me show you, whoop, okay. Let me show you, This is a child who sees me for 30-minute sessions. So his are totally different. And he is doing almost all mouse control for the lesson because that's the only way to keep him engaged. So he's a hockey lover. He does 30-minute lessons. We start by, I don't do flashcards with him because of his needs. So instead, every day every lesson he's presented with these nonsense words, and he has to use his mouse, put his mouse where they go, and break them up. Now, the first few weeks that we were doing this, I would have all the vowels in red for him as a cue. So he could look at that, and that would give him a little cue about where he might want to break the word. But then as you can see, after a few weeks, I took that signal away. So he would just have to look at the black print, notice the vowels, look at the consonants, decide where to split. He would read each chunk, and then he'd snap it together. You can see we have this very same game. Both students were working on EE, except he was doing Bruins colors and trying to find the Bruins logo versus a cute kitty cat. So similar activity. I'm trying not to reinvent the wheel unless, of course, I need to. And his spelling. And then, so this is Newsela, if you know that website, Newsela, I never know how to call it. And I've been doing screenshots of their articles for kids who are not using decodable text. And here's our bookmark. And here's what the sentence work looks like before it's filled in. It's important that kids play sports because it's important that kids play sports, but it's important that kids play sports so on. A couple of sessions ago for his word dictation, these are all my old slides at the bottom, he would have to sound out the word, and then he'd have to put the hockey puck, he'd have to think, like, answer first, was that an EE or EA word? And he'd put the hockey puck where it went to, like, cast his vote before he voted it. So that was just like an extra layer of fun for him. And his Roland Reed had Bruins characters. All right, I'm still gonna flow through a few more. Okay, let me just look for things that are a little bit different. Okay, so for this student, I've been working with his mom, and she's been sending me pictures of his actual, things that have been happening in his life. I put the picture on the screen, and we are working on just writing any sentence because we're just trying to get some writing output out of him. So it's very non-threatening writing work. Similar colors. Whoop, yep. Got 3 kids doing vowel teams. Now, Wilson and Foundations have put a lot of materials online. So this is a Foundations grade 2 decodable passage that's focusing on multisyllabic words. So what I did was beforehand, I plucked out all the words. I put the vowels in red. Oops. I put the welded sounds in green. I put the suffixes in a little box, and then this was a challenge word that I just put a star next to. So before we read the story, we previewed the words. Yes, we're learning new skills every week, like a concept, but we're also it's heavy fluency work. We're just looking for automaticity with patterns. So coding things like this. Then I took the first row, Hopscotch invented Stronger 100, and I made 3 rows, and he had to pick a symbol and read the row. Same words over and over, just to build some fluency and prepare him to read this passage. For this game, he calls out a number, and then I think, oh, I got it on the first try. He was finding a minion. So these are, he would call the number, and they're all EE and EA ones. Same for this. This used to be covered in sharks. He would call out a shark. So for children who need fluency work, I've just been trying to find ways for them to read and reread sentences. And I can still have my themed sentence. You know, they still have vowel consonant E, which is something he needs a lot of review on for accuracy. And so I've got them up here. Again, you're not, when you look at this lesson plan, you're just seeing all the various games I've used, because that's what shows up on the screen. What you're not seeing is the instruction, because that happens like a face-to-face, and then with me modeling and writing something on the screen, the phonemic awareness work, the flashcards. So some of the really critical parts of structured literacy you don't see on the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint are just the visuals and the engaging piece I'm using to lure them in and to keep their attention. So doing structured literacy is not just about cutesy screen gadgets and fun things like that. That's just the engaging piece. Good teaching comes from our expertise in our brains, and we, in order to keep our kids into it, we have to use that, you know, we have to draw them in. But good teaching isn't having a fancy PowerPoint or using all those amazing online tools. That can be really helpful, but you need to know your student. So above all, you need to know who you're teaching, you need to know what you're trying to teach them, and then of course you got to figure out how to do it effectively in this crazy online format. Do your best, take one step at a time. I've just started this myself, so I 100% can relate to how you're feeling with trying to take on this new technology. And I'm here to answer questions. So let me know if you have any questions, and we'll just go from there.